Hi, my name is Gary Boomershine with realestateinvestor.com. You're listening to the Fearless Investor podcast with my good friend Kyle Stanley. Keep listening to learn how to conquer the world of investing.
Hey everyone, welcome into the Fearless Investor Podcast. You're listening to me, Kyle Stanley, and I'm super excited to have a great conversation today with Gary Boomershine, who is one of the originals in real estate investing. He's been doing it for over 17 years. He was doing it and learning from CDs, and literally DVDs and all that kind of stuff that was, to us today now very, very archaic. But just so much knowledge, so much mental knowledge behind what Gary has to share as well. And I think that is, of course, mental knowledge. Knowledge comes from the mind. But what I mean by that is it's a mindset thing. He really has a great mindset that he's going to be able to share with you guys today. Now, before we get into it with Gary, I'd love to give a quick shout out to our sponsor, Boostly. My good friend, Mark Simpson, the founder of Boostly, says, listen up in case you didn't know it's 2021. Things are changing in the short-term rentals world. Hosts, you can't keep relying on Airbnb to bring you all of your business. You have to start booking directly to your customer. And you can do this by having your own direct booking site on WordPress. That's the important thing. It's got to be on WordPress. Now, I know you're thinking that's either going to take a lot of time or it's going to take a lot of money to hire someone to go do that. But that's exactly where Boostly comes in. They're the best in the business for website design for the short-term rentals game, servicing over 600 clients worldwide. And every site is built for you on WordPress. Pricing starts at just right around $99. And it doesn't matter if you have one property or 100. My good friend, Mark Simpson, tells me and tells you that it is actually guaranteed to get you direct bookings or your money back. Just book a call with Mark's team at boostly.co.uk/fearless. Your future business will thank you. Again, that's Boostly, boostly.co.uk/fearless. Now let's get to it with Gary Boomershine. Hey guys, welcome into another episode of the Fearless Investor. Cannot wait for this one. We've got the OG Gary Boomershine on the show with us here today, realestateinvestor.com, which means that he has been around for a long time if you own a website like that, because I'm sure everyone tries to get that website. But hey, Gary, thanks so much for being with us today. Thanks for being on the show, and can't wait to jump into some of the conversation topics with a long-term real estate veteran like yourself.
Oh man, I'm super excited about this. It's a really interesting time to be in real estate. I personally think we're going through one of the biggest transfers of wealth, and especially those that are prepared and those that are actually, getting into real estate and turning it into a real passive income machine for, financial freedom. This is the perfect timing. So we'll have a lot of fun. I'm known as kind of the nutty professor. I've been doing this a long time, since 2004 full time. So I'll try to not go on too deep dives, but I love real estate and love this topic. And I love sharing my lessons with anybody that is trying to crack the code and especially learn from mistakes. This business is definitely learning how to do the right business. There's a saying that I always have whenever I'm on stage, which is King Solomon said, nothing is new under the sun. And real estate, you don't want to reinvent the wheel in this business. You want to find what works in the current market and follow that and not deviate. And then once you actually perfect it, then you make it better. And that would be what I would share to everybody that's getting into this business.
There we go.
And then lastly, for everybody, education without implementation is just expensive entertainment. You have to take the education and then you do have to implement it in the business. You have to take action, and those that do that are very well rewarded.
Absolutely. Hey, I love that. Education without implementation is just expensive. What?
Entertainment.
Expensive entertainment. I like that. That's good. That's good.
Yeah,
I'm going to use that.
All
right, Gary. Well, hey,
by the way,
you're already dropping knowledge bombs on us, and we haven't even gotten into the interview. But before we get started, what is that most interesting, craziest, wildest real estate investing story that you've got for us?
Yeah, actually, my first deal is probably the most crazy. It was, 2004, I was working 80-hour weeks. I came from corporate America. I won't go into my backstory, but I came out of software, enterprise software, Silicon Valley software selling with a real estate background. I was a licensed agent back then. But my wife and I, we had no life. We had a 2-month-old baby. We had a 4-year-old. And I never, even when I'd come home from my travels, the dogs would bark at me because I was never home. And so we wanted a new life and freedom. So we decided to go full-time real estate. And I literally quit my job. We burned the bridges. Neither my wife and I were working. And we had a $700,000 mortgage in California.
Oh my gosh. Wow.
So anyway, I started the business. I didn't even fully understand the investor business. I took a course. I went through probably 3 of the 9 CDs. That's back in the day. Everything was shipped on a CD, not even a disk drive. And I basically gave myself a 90-day window. I'm like, I'm going to go find some deals in 30 days. I'm going to go get some deals under contract in the next 30 days. And then I'm going to go make some money on the final 30 days. And I had a 90-day window. So my very first deal, I ended up getting a seller who lived in Bakersfield. You and I are both in California.
Yep.
Bakersfield is almost towards Los Angeles. I drove 5 hours because I knew the seller wanted to sell. He was a motivated seller. I knew he had equity in his house, and had a brief conversation with him. So I literally got in my car, drove 5 hours, and didn't know a ton about investing, but I did know about building relationships. And I'm going to give a lesson out of this in just a second. But we talked, this guy, his name was Joe. We talked for about an hour and a half. We didn't talk about the house. We talked about his story, his life, some of the issues that he had with his kids, getting screwed. He had this 3-acre property and a house on it, and he hated it. And he went through a divorce, and he goes, I hate the house. And he had a patent. And so we started talking about patents. I don't know what it was, but I was building a relationship and a huge amount of trust. So finally he said, Gary, you've come 5 hours. It's getting dark. I know that we haven't really talked about the house. And so I turned it around. Instead of giving him an offer, I said, Joe, what would you like? Like, what are you looking for? And he goes, Gary, I really like you. And here's my deal. I will give you $10,000 to take the house. So
Okay.
he offered me $10,000. And I said, I basically said, okay, why would you do that? Well, at that time, he actually was $20,000 behind on his mortgage.
Okay.
And had not gone into foreclosure. And he said, look, I'm trying to get some credit, and my credit has not been destroyed yet. And I figure if I give you $10,000 and you come up with $10,000 and cure the mortgage, I'll just give you the house. And so I basically said, Joe, I'll take the house, but you don't have to give me the money. I'm a faith-based guy, and I'll buy the house. So I bought it that night and closed and got the deed for $100.
Wow.
So we literally brought the notary over. Even the notary said, Mr. Joe, do you know what you're doing here? And Joe said, yes, I'm selling and giving this young man my house for $100. She goes, okay. So I literally bought the house. All right. Where the story gets crazy is we became really good friends. And by the way, I made $181,000 on that house.
And this was your first deal?
It's a long story. It was my first deal. Actually,
Wow.
This was back in the short sale day, because he had a mortgage on it that he owed $165,000. The house was worth $205, fixed up. I sold it for $290. Don't get into the details, except there was a mortgage on it. I went to a bank because I actually, at that time, nobody knew what a short sale was. And that was the course that I took of learning how to basically buy foreclosures. You can't do this strategy today, by the way. It doesn't work. This is in 2004. So I went to the bank and found out that the bank thought they were in a junior position. They were in first position. And so I turned around and I offered $36,000 for full payoff of a $165,000 loan. So I ended up getting this house for 36 grand. I put 45 into it and sold it for 290. And I screwed everything up other than the negotiation and building the relationship with the seller. Well, long story short, I bought the house, everything worked out, but I ended up becoming really good friends with the seller. And the crazy story was that we were actually together on a rafting trip, and he ended up having a massive heart attack. And I was the guy on my very first deal, giving him mouth-to-mouth resuscitation.
Oh my
he died in
gosh.
front of me. Isn't that crazy? Now, I've never had that out of all the transactions, but it was the most bizarre story and crazy story. And I've told that on stage, and I'm just telling everybody, if you're getting into real estate, this is very unique. But
Sure, absolutely.
that was my craziest story. Now, the lesson out of all this is building relationships. It's not about making just offers to sellers. Sales, this whole business is about talking to people and building relationships. And the key to buying property, a lot of people think they go in and they offer, a discounted price to a seller. Number one is you got to build a relationship, you got to create trust, and you have to come up with a solution to the seller's problem. And if we're buying properties at a discount and getting a good deal, we're really buying the problem. And just remember that. And that's been something I teach. I actually have an advanced sales course, but so many people come in and just go in and try to make this lowball offer. And actually people buy and sell or invest to people that they like, trust, and respect. This is a relationship business and creating solutions to sellers' problems. So that's the lesson. And I don't know anybody else that's actually experienced on their first deal or even on their 50th deal, a seller that they've died, in front of them.
Yeah.
That was crazy.
Wow. That had to leave a huge impact on the rest of your real estate journey too. And obviously you've got a very long real estate journey. You've got a lot of value already that you're offering to the audience, and just even one simple story. But I've got to ask, just to kind of back it up for a second, what got you into real estate back in, you said 2004 was when you really started. What were you doing before then? And what really got you to the point where you said, yes, I'm jumping into real estate?
Yeah, both my family and my wife's family, we both come from kind of a real estate background. My in-laws were sort of they were always this kind of, her dad was a general contractor, but they retired. They were the kind of the millionaire next door. I don't think my father-in-law ever made more than 70 or 80,000 a year, but they had retired through investing in properties and turning those into long-term rentals and passive income. So that was my in-laws. And I grew up, but I actually went down the corporate route, the JOB. By the way, the JOB, I call that just over broke.
Right.
And so, that's a transaction business where we're swapping our time for money. And real estate is a long-term game. So I was working corporate America. I was having success. We're making good money, but I had no life. And it was in 2004, I was probably 50 pounds heavier than I am now. I know you and I are both health and wellness guys. I am. But I read Rich Dad, Poor Dad on a plane. I was miserable. And I wanted a new life. I was looking for financial freedom and actually having a life that, as I got older and having kids, it's like I wanted to be with my kids and hang out with them. And so I read Rich Dad, Poor Dad, and the light bulb came on, which is buying real estate is the vehicle. That's the why, to give us financial freedom and a life. And it was around generating enough passive income to exceed our expenses, which is the definition of wealth. And so that's why we said, let's go acquire some real estate to give us some passive income. And that has been, I got lost on the journey, by the way. I think a lot of real estate people, in fact, more than less, get lost. Many of us get into real estate for passive income and a new life and financial independence, but get lost in flipping and wholesaling and all the kumbaya. And I want to remind everybody, get clear on your why, not the how. The how of real estate is actually pretty easy. You just get somebody that and implement the technique and it works. Real estate's amazing, but it's the why that's the hard part. Why are you in real estate? What's the purpose? What kind of life do you want? And before we get off here today, I'm just about to release my first book. It's been a decade on my bucket list, called The Freedom Code, and I will give a early release to everybody. It's coming out here shortly, and I'll give a free copy, which really focuses on all my life lessons and all the nuggets and wisdom, so that other people don't have to repeat the same mistakes.
Yeah, thank you for doing that. I stick around to the end, guys. That's when Gary is going to give away the information on how to get that book. But Gary, it is so interesting. I would say when we talk about people getting into real estate, it seems like at least 50% of my guests reference, the Rich Dad Poor Dad and Robert Kiyosaki. And it is such an impactful book. But now that you are, call it right around 17 years into your journey, and maybe being able to develop a book that can help people in a similar way, that's got to be a pretty cool feeling, right? To know that you now are in that driver's seat of, hey, I was learning this and I was a student, but now I'm the teacher. And I gotta imagine that's probably a pretty cool thing.
Yeah, it is. I don't really like attention. It's really funny. Like I really like to be a nobody, even back in my hometown, like even in my men's group. Like they're like, what do you do, Gary? You do kind of some real estate thing. I really don't like the notoriety, the idea of being some sort of big name. I'll go to an event and everyone's like, oh my gosh, Gary, I've heard you on stage and podcasts. And so the book is not really, the purpose is not around the notoriety. The purpose is I love sharing my lessons to help other people. I think what happens, I'm at a point in my life where it's more around significance, being able to provide back. And I know in real estate, here's the one thing I can share. And I pretty much know everybody in this business. I shouldn't say everybody in this business, but a lot of the speakers, the coaches, the big guys, and a lot of them are my very close friends. And here's what I know about real estate. Real estate's a 7-year cycle. It's cyclical, and it all works, but it changes. And there's a lot of doors. Imagine you have 8 doors in front of you, and 2 of those doors lead to greatness and financial freedom, but the other 6 are booby traps. And I just booby traps, meaning it's, sometimes you go down this path, and people say, oh, go here, go do this, and it takes 6 months to realize after you burn through a ton of money. It can lead for a lot of people, financial ruin, divorce, etc. So my purpose is, can I actually, for a handful of people that are willing to listen and take action, can I actually help people on all the mistakes and lessons that I've made and seen, and be able to provide them something to get them financial independence? There's nothing. I was actually speaking at an event in Omaha last week. And a kid, anybody less than 52 years old now to me as a kid, it's kind of funny. But he came up and said, Gary, I heard you last year, in May of last year. And he said, you told me to go do this. And he goes, I've now acquired 9 properties. 2 of them are free and clear, and the rest are cash flowing. And I wanted to let you know you changed my life. And it's those types of things that really inspire me, that if I could give the breadcrumbs for other people, and it leads somebody to freedom and saves a marriage. I had another guy, Javier Hinojo, very successful investor, but he actually had 17 cents in his bank account. He told the story, and I think it was 2017 at Christmas, and he had to borrow money from his son. And he came to one of our live events, and he was a member using our service for realestateinvestor.com. And we came and told him that I gave him some feedback, and a year later, his whole business had changed. And he said, Gary, not only have you changed my business, but you actually saved my marriage. And I told him that he was the biggest problem in his business. I said, Javier, you need to actually hire a sales guy and get out of the middle of it and leverage other people's time. That should not be what you're doing. You're a CEO in a business, and a CEO, if you're a CEO in a business and you're doing $10 an hour work, you're going to have a $10 bank account. So act like a CEO and hire somebody. That's what businesses do. So he went and did that, and now he has a 7-figure, plus business. He's got a large team. Most of his kids are now in the business. And so it's more of those types of things.
Yeah, that's so cool. Well, and going back to what you were talking about, I think it's a really important topic, because I call it shiny object syndrome, where people, they get into real estate and they think, it's exactly what you said. It's, hey, I read Robert Kiyosaki's Rich Dad, Poor Dad, and it clicked. I knew now what an asset was versus a liability. I knew it's just all about accumulating assets. But here they are 3, 4, 5 years into their real estate business. They have 0 rentals, and they have, sure, they're doing 30, 40, 50 flips a year, but that can go away at any time. The market could change anytime. Or they just feel like they own a job, or they own a business rather than, a wealth building machine like rentals. So you kind of told me before we got on here that there's these 3 buckets that people work in real estate. I'd love for if you could share that with the audience.
Yeah, I'm going to just try to, in 4 or 5 minutes, I'll try to give my very best. And so number one, everyone on this call is really 7 houses, single family, actually, 7 houses from complete financial independence and financial freedom. And the problem is, if I went on to a seminar and I told everybody you're 7 houses away, nobody would buy my course, because it would probably be like, hey, it's 7 years, keep your job, pay these off completely and make them free and clear. You can literally buy $100,000 house, and in 7 years you'll be a millionaire and you'll be financially free, because everybody wants instant gratification. They want push button, take a little, pill. They want the perfect thing. So here's what I would share with everybody. Everybody has 7 houses, 7 properties from complete financial independence. It is not about the 100 deals or the big bank account of like 10 million. It's really about the passive income. Focus on the passive income that would give you the lifestyle that you want. Second thing, in this business, it's fine to wholesale or fix and flip. I do that today, but it's really, the model is keep the best, sell the rest. So, even for me, my whole business and my wholesaling business, which I love, is really to cherry pick the stuff that I want. Just like you, I love Airbnb, by the way. I love lending, and I love rentals that I don't have tenants, toilets, and trash. I like easy properties that Warren Buffett, the way he explains what a real estate investor is, I want to follow that model. I'll share that in a second. So keep the best, sell the rest, acquire properties. And the other thing is, this business is a finance game. Real estate is a finance game. It is all about leverage, but it's not just about leveraging other people's money, right? It's also leverage other people's time and experience and resources. Don't do all those things yourself. If you can actually write a check to an expert or somebody else, do it. Because a lot of us get into it. That's businesses, in every successful business in America. You wouldn't go and do a pizza parlor and be a pizza restaurant owner and be the guy that is taking the order, making the pizza, and then getting in the car,
right,
and driving to deliver it. This business is a leverage business. It's leverage of other people. So be focused on your time. Your time is the most valuable commodity. It's not about the money. Don't focus on the $10 million. Focus on the $10,000 a month in passive income, because most of us are 10 to 20,000 a month in passive income, mailbox money, from complete financial freedom. The next thing, there are 3 buckets of money in real estate, and most people are only focused on one, and it's really the wrong one. There's cash now, there's cash flow, and there's cash later.
Okay.
Cash now is you do something, you do some work, you wholesale, you find a buyer, you flip it, and you get a one-time fee. It could be a listing too. A lot of agents do the same thing. They get a listing and they get paid. Just recognize that's important, but that's a job just over broke. So you also want to be focused on cash flow. Cash flow typically comes from lending, learning how to lend money and take a spread on your money, and also rentals. I love Airbnb, and we can talk a little bit about that. That's my primary story and strategy. And as the market turns, by the way, that's going to be a huge play. People who are transitioning into this next cycle of real estate that is coming. We're going to all want to be in assets, real estate assets, because there's going to be a tsunami coming of supply, and then we're going to want to be able to buy it. A lot of people are going to get wiped out. We want to buy that, and then we're going to want to hold it, because those assets are going to probably inflate like we've never seen before through inflation. So that's the cash flow. And then cash later is when we get somebody else to pay the mortgage down, and also and all the benefits of real estate. Warren Buffett says a real estate investor is somebody that buys a physical asset, right? They use money, they buy a physical asset called real estate, that's the asset class, and then they hold it forever, all right? They don't sell it, they hold it, and they basically take all the benefits of real estate that we get off of things like leverage, and there's actually an acronym for it. But there's cash now, there's cash flow, and cash later. And just realize when you're looking at a real estate, it's not all about wholesaling or fix and flip. You want to look at the properties and say, hey, how can I maximize these three buckets? And sometimes you'll wholesale, and sometimes you'll hold and turn it into an Airbnb. It really comes down to looking at the property. And a lot of people get in this business, they're like, I'm a wholesaler, or I'm a creative real estate guy or whatever. It's like, no, look at the three buckets and do it now. Don't wait. A lot of people think, oh, I'm going to do wholesaling and then I'm going to get into fix and flip and then ultimately into apartments and lending. I don't know a lot of people that actually make that transition. So just do it from day one. Keep the best, sell the rest.
That's good. I love that. Keep the best, sell the rest. And I'd be remiss if I didn't ask you, being an Airbnb guy myself, you've been through everything. You've done it all. You've done hundreds and hundreds and hundreds, maybe even thousands of deals. Now in your real estate career, where you're at 17 years in and seeing where the market's at, it sounds to me like what you just said is real estate with Airbnb being the exit is the play for you and the play that people should be taking. Why do you say that?
Yeah. So I am at a point in time, I'm purely interested in as much time as I possibly can have. I'm more about my time. I want to do as little work and get as much passive income as I possibly can. So, number one, I'm not a volume guy. I'm not looking. I don't need $300,000 or $400,000 a month in income. I need a fairly small amount. I love to travel. So when I Airbnb, I'm looking for location. I'm looking for better neighborhoods. I'm looking for the good rents. I'm not, on Scottsdale, Arizona, right? We just actually unloaded a property that we had an Airbnb in Hawaii. And so this market has been euphoric. And so I've gotten to a lot more of a cash position to be able to buy. So I'm lending right now. I'm wholesaling a handful of properties that I don't want to keep, and I'm looking for ones that I can actually have as Airbnb. So I think this is a really good time. It's a euphoric stage of the market. When there's an old saying in real estate, when you're a barber and with a hairdresser and everybody's talking about real estate, then you probably are at the end of the stage. So a lot of people are pushing forward thinking that this is the new normal. No, real estate's been a cycle. So I don't have the perfect crystal ball, but I think we're going to see a huge supply of foreclosures we're in the middle of a crazy COVID thing.
Right.
And there's been free money. They've been printing money at epic proportions. So we're going to see a huge supply. A lot of historic markets that have taken a hit, like the coastal areas like California and Arizona and Las Vegas and Florida. They're going to probably take a hit. There's going to be a supply of foreclosures. Those are going to be incredible buying opportunities. And so that is coming. That tsunami is coming. So I'm actually getting myself prepared, taking money now, buying, but being very watchful and getting prepared for this new market, because we're going to see buying opportunities of epic proportion. A lot of those I'll turn into Airbnbs, and then the inflation will probably go up. A lot of real estate, I think properties that are worth $500,000 will be 5 million in 10 years. So we all want to be holding properties.
Wow.
That's my take. I mean, they're printing money. The fiat money currency, it's the way it works. Look at other countries, look at the way it has here. So, and this is going to be one of the biggest transfers of wealth in history. And I think those that are preparing for it, those that are getting in and getting into real estate and getting themselves, buying right today. When I buy a property and and I'm looking at, like, I don't really like tenants, so that's not my gig. A lot of people do like
Same.
tenants. I
Same.
love Airbnb because I'll look at it and say, hey, if I can keep this thing 50% occupied or 40% occupied, am I still making money and breaking even? And most of the deals that I'm doing are like that. Like, this is a no-brainer.
There you go. Good stuff. Okay. So long story short, get into real estate now, buy and hold. If you like tenants, go for that. But Airbnb seems to be the play. And in 10 years, you should see a 10X on your money. So is that about right?
It is. It is.
Yeah.
It is. You know, for this is and I, you know, a lot of people are like, how do I get into real estate right now? Like, I like going direct to seller. So like I'm really good at like sending out direct mail, and I go direct to the seller. There's a lot of sellers that don't want, you know, their houses need some work. And we're picking up a property right now, husband and wife, beautiful property, but the husband and wife are going through a divorce, and they really don't want any neighbors to know. And so the idea that I can come in and buy at a discount, it's a private sale. You know, it's a great win-win for them and great win-win for me. So that's one. Another property, it's an older seller, and you know, the house is beautiful on the outside, but they're hoarders. And I'm helping them like deal with all the packing and dealing with all the stuff. So I'm getting a wonderful discount because, you know, they're fearful of all the stuff of how to deal with that. A lot of people don't want to list with agents. And so there's a huge number of opportunities out there. So that's why I like going direct to the seller. Some people, you know, will find properties on the MLS with realtors. That's a very competitive market now.
Right. Yeah, there's no deals there.
So
yeah, there's no deals there.
No.
No. Well, Gary, thank you so much. This has been really informative. I want to make sure that you give the audience the opportunity to go get your book that's coming out for free. Can you give more information on that?
Yeah, so I have I'm going to give everybody a phone number. You can text, and just in the text this number that I give you, and just put fearless, so that I'm going to tell the team that I want to give you our free book. We're a couple of, probably a month, 6 weeks out from releasing it. It's in the final editing. But just put fearless into this text message. That phone number, Kyle, and you can put this in the show notes, is 925-320-0575. So 925-320-0575. Couple of minutes. That actually uses the same software that we offer our clients, to software for interacting and doing all the follow-up with sellers. If you're using our service, you're going to get a little message in a couple of minutes, and you can you'll be able to get all kinds of free stuff from me. Some of my everything that I've learned around doing direct mail, after 85 million pieces of direct mail for a whole bunch of people around the country, and cold calling. And I also have an hour-and-a-half presentation I did last year on building a business that works for you, and a whole bunch of other things. And you'll be on my list to get the free book.
Awesome. So just text fearless to that number. Be one of the first to get the freedom code, and a lot of other free things. That's awesome. Thank you so much, Gary. And thanks for joining us today and helping our audience to conquer the world of real estate investing. Show notes for this one are fearlesskyle.com/Gary Boomershine. Believe it or not, Boomershine is actually spelled exactly how it sounds. BOOMERSHINE. I really love what Gary had to say there about those three buckets, because we get into real estate and we hear about these things in real estate where we think, oh my gosh, that sounds like financial freedom, and to be able to build assets and accumulate assets that one day will pay us, so we don't have to worry about relying on the government, relying on a pension, relying on our 401ks, our retirement funds, all those things that maybe one day could go right down the shooter, or that's a PC word for it, or maybe one day not be there, you know. And when it comes to real estate, that house is still going to be there. There's still going to need to be tenants or Airbnb guests that are going to need to pay in order to live there. But we get distracted, right? You know, we go into it and we say, oh wait, but wholesale, you know, I got into this thinking I'm going to do Airbnb or long-term rentals, but that wholesaling thing sounds good. That guy's making like $100,000 for one transaction. Let me go do that. And then we lose sight on the whole wealth building idea behind real estate. And I think that is so important to be able to recenter, put on the blinders, get rid of the distractions. And it sounds like Gary's book will be a great way for you to be able to do that. So make sure to text that number. It's going to be in the show notes. Again, fearlesskyle.com/Gary Boomershine. And you can text fearless to that number. And all you have to do is do that. And you'll get a free copy of the book when it comes out. So hopefully you learned a little bit more about conquering the world of real estate today and real estate investing. We'll see you next time here on the Fearless Investor Podcast.